Traditions represent the socio-cultural evolution of an empire as it expands and develops, and they consist of abilities, edicts, bonuses, etc., all unlocked with Unity. That's what the wiki has to say. In this video, we're going to dive into every single tradition in the game, work out what they do, and then place them within a tier list. I won't cover every single benefit from a tradition, I'll simply cover the most important ones, or sometimes the worst benefits that you really want to ignore. It's very important to remember that we only have 7 possible traditions we can pick every game, and of those, only one can be an Ascension Path tradition. That means traditions are a limited resource, so we must be careful when choosing which traditions to take. Let's dive in and find out more. Let's start with the F tier. These are traditions you probably shouldn't ever pick because they're not that great. You can pick them, they will give you some bonuses, but let's not forget we only have 7 tradition slots available, and we probably don't want to waste them on these traditions. What do we have? Well, Aptitude is now right at the very bottom. The last time we saw this tradition in a tier list was right after the release of Galactic Paragons, and at that point it was the best of the best. It has since been nerfed into oblivion. You're going to get a variety of different bonuses here that you either generally don't need or don't really care about, or can get from other sources. At the beginning, we'll get additional leader trait options, which is relatively nice. That will allow us to pick better traits on our leaders, but the availability of traits has been really scoped down, especially for veteran traits, offering only a few different choices per veteran class now, so we don't really necessarily need this +1 additional leader trait options. Increasing our leader pool size, reducing our leader maximum negative traits, reducing leader cost and leader upkeep are all okay, but definitely not worth wasting an entire tradition on. Additional leader capacity is also something you can get from a variety of other sources like technologies, or if you really want to go down that route, you could pick a civic, but I really wouldn't recommend it. And it's not that great. This is a soft cap that you generally will be comfortable lying underneath, though at times you could push beyond. Overall, none of the bonuses here are strong enough individually, and that includes the agenda, which really doesn't give you much of anything, to justify ever taking the Aptitude tradition with the current state of the game. Politics is a tradition that is entirely focused on the galactic community and your relationship with it. However, it doesn't really give you many bonuses. You're going to get a relatively small boost to your Diplo weight by taking this tradition. That boost is based on the leader level of the envoy you place in the galactic community, an extra 2.5% Diplo weight per level, but even at level 10 that's only 25% more. Persistent Petitioners will give you an extra 25% diplomatic weight after another empire's resolution passes until a resolution proposed by you passes. The finisher gives you another 10% Diplo weight, so overall, best case here, you are getting 60% additional Diplo weight, but most of the time it's more like 30 or 40%. There are lots of other ways that we can stack additional Diplo weight without wasting an entire tradition slot on something like politics. Next up in the F tier, we have something you might not expect. We have the Genetic Tradition. Now, the Ascension traditions are very special, and I wanted to differentiate them from the rest of the traditions in this tier list. You see, you can only ever pick one specific Ascension path in the game, and each of the Ascension traditions are individually better than the rest of the traditions that you can otherwise pick. So rather than just lumping them up all in the S tier, I want to differentiate them just a little bit. So in this column, we only have Ascension traditions, and we are only ranking them relative to other Ascension traditions. With the release of the Machine Age, the Genetic Tradition really does need a little bit of love and attention to bring it up on par with the other Ascension traditions. If you pick Overtuned with Genetics, it does get quite a bit more powerful because you can stack some very, very powerful bonus traits on your pops by combining the Genetic Ascension traits with the Overtuned traits. And that comfortably moves this up to the B tier, probably. Without that though, it is definitely down here in the F tier. So you will get some monthly organic pop assembly, a total of 4.5 that can be slightly modified by gene clinics, and also traits on your species. You'll also get access to a host of traits. The best amongst these are going to be granting you increased researcher output, a tiny 10% bonus to alloys, a 5%, yes, and that is all, a 5% bonus to resource from job output, which compared to every other ascension path is utter trash. Every other path is getting a minimum of 20% resource from job output, if not more. And you'll also get some relatively good traits to boost your pop growth speed. Overall, this is currently the worst ascension path we can now take in the game. Not only do you have to take this, but you then have to spend additional research points in modifying your species in order to give them all of these extra traits. And even when we include the auto-modding trait in Genetic Ascension, now as a reminder, that trait on your pops is going to cost 3 train points and give your pop the access to whichever the optimal trait is for whichever job they are working. For example, if they are a trader, they'll get the Thrifty trait, giving them 25% additional output from trade. However, the genetic auto-modding trait, Vocational Genomics, isn't even locked behind the Genetic Ascension. You just need the Targeted Gene Expressions technology to get your hands on it, so you don't even have to genetically ascend to get really good genetic pops. We're now up to the C tier. Traditions in this tier are much better than F. You might include them, especially with specific playstyles, but overall they are not that great. First up we have Domination. Now this is Domination if you are a regular empire, not a Gestalt consciousness. We'll look at the Gestalt version of Domination later, but basically it's much better than the C tier. Domination for regular empires is in essence going to grant you a massive increase to your resource output from your slaves. Slaves get not just the 5% additional worker output, but an extra 5% slave output from the opener here and from workplace motivators. Also, we can include an edict in this extended shift to grant us further resource output. So all in all, you're looking at about 40% extra resource output from your slaves. So if you're going for a slave build, this is possibly A tier, maybe the bottom or the top of B tier at least. The only other really good bonus here is minus 10% empire size from pops when you complete Domination, and the fact that completing this tradition unlocks the Hegemony Federation, which is quite a strong Federation type. Everything else is merely okay, or darn right terrible in the case of Imperious Architecture at best. Synchronicity is the Gestalt version of Harmony. It has quite a few of the bonuses from Harmony, but is missing some of the core aspects here. Synchronicity for machine intelligence empires is what we're currently looking at. The good bonuses here are an increase to stability, a reduction in empire size from pops, and then later on you're going to get a decrease to planetary ascension cost and an increase to your planetary ascension effects. Everything else here, if you're a machine intelligence, is honestly just pretty garbage. Reducing deviancy from evaluators is entirely unnecessary, and we don't often need plus 10 years of leader lifespan as a machine intelligence. That's just a little bit useless. And don't even get me started on the plus 50 edict fund. Are you kidding me? If you have a very large empire with very high empire size, that is useless. At very small empire sizes, it's alright. But honestly, it's still pretty garbage. I would like to see it that every instance of plus 50 plus 100 edict fund from things like Traditions should instead be changed to plus 20% edict fund or plus 50% edict fund. That would definitely make this quite a bit more powerful. Last up here we have Subterfuge. Subterfuge has some very important combat bonuses in it, plus 5 base evasion and plus 10 tracking. If you're going to be fighting corvettes with battleships, this is a necessity. However, you don't have to do that. You could build some strike craft or something that actually has good tracking and doesn't rely on subterfuge. You don't need to use artillery weapons against corvettes, but with subterfuge you can if you really want to. Everything else here is going to help you with your espionage, but since espionage in the game is very, very lackluster, the actual benefits you'll get from conducting espionage missions are pretty useless. The main bonus here will be the bonuses you'll get to code breaking and intel level, allowing you to get higher levels of intel on enemy empires so that you can understand where their fleets are and which weapons they have equipped on their ships before you launch a war. Outside of that, everything else this tradition offers is really not that useful. The synthetic ascension path has been reworked with the machine age. If you'd like to find out more information on that, I'll put a link to the video covering the new synthetic ascension path in the description below. What does this tradition do though? Well, first, even just to unlock this, you will have to research the artificial administration technology. That is the technology that gives you access to synthetics. First off, let's note that that gives us plus 10% robot output empire-wide in terms of resources from jobs, so we'll have that as a base when we take this tradition and turn all of our pops into synths. But that technology does take a fair amount of time to get to, slightly more than any of the other ascension paths, meaning this will take longer than psionic or cybernetic ascension to begin. Even if you really ram down that agenda and keep pushing to get the next technology, as there is an agenda you can use to get the next technology in the chain, that is still going to take longer than just the one technology psionic or cybernetic need, or the relatively early technology that genetic needs. When completed, we're going to get all of our pops converted into synthetic pops. They'll get a total of plus 20% robot pop output. They will not have traits that are as good as modular robots, we'll look at those later, but they still get access to some relatively alright traits. Much better traits, in fact, than Bioascension get access to. You'll also get an empire-wide reduction of minus 10% robotic pop amenities usage. This tradition also gives you an identity designer building, granting you empire-wide pop assembly, and you'll get an extra roboticist job from capital buildings across the empire. So you will have relatively robust pop assembly speed, and if you make a migration pact or conquer a biological empire, you can get bio pop growth as well. Overall, this means you should be getting more pops than a genetically ascended empire. I should also mention there are a couple of advanced government authorities you can grab after you've completed your synthetic ascension that will give you a few extra bonuses. These authorities are usually not amazing though. Honestly, the cyborg authorities are generally quite a lot better. And if you're enjoying this video, please observe that time-honored tradition of using the like button. Expansion is a tradition best picked right at the start of the game. If you take this after your first or second tradition slot, you'll waste a lot of the bonuses. Those main bonuses are +1 extra pops when establishing a colony, meaning you can get your colonies up and running just a little bit faster, an increase of 10% pop growth speed, or if you have a machine main species, 10% pop assembly speed. A slight reduction to empire size from systems and colonies. This colony reduction can be combined with other bonuses to get you down to 0 empire size from colonies. That is awesome if you're playing super wide. The final bonus here is +1 maximum districts on all non-artificial planets, making every planet ever so slightly larger. The bonuses here are reasonable, though overall they're really just not that amazing. It's a very reasonable and fine tradition to take, but most of the time you can probably do without it and instead take something that's going to give you an early leg up, either economically or with Unity production or with research. Prosperity has come a long way since it was an auto pick for every single empire type. Now Prosperity really does not offer many bonuses. The agenda favored society is pretty good. You'll get 5% additional specialist output empire-wide and 20% additional resource output on the capital for a portion of time after the agenda fires. The main bonuses from this tradition are +5% resource output from jobs, and that's about it. The standard construction templates early on can be very useful, giving you 25% additional planet build speed and reducing your building and district cost by 10%. If you're going for any sort of rush build, this can be quite a good tradition, if only to dive into a little bit and grab standard construction templates and not then complete. Void Dwellers will also really like how Public Works Division gives them +1 max districts on every single habitat. With that all being said, I am very confident in placing this in the B tier. It's solidly here in the B tier, possibly even near the top of the B tier, but it in no way deserves to be pushed up to the A tier. Not anymore. The diplomacy tradition is the only thing in the entire game that gives us the ability to create federations. Federations are quite powerful, however you can simply find another federation and convince them that you are worthy of joining, or become a vassal of someone in a federation that has set their federation law to allow vassals to join. You don't have to pick diplomacy to get into a federation, but it is, as I said, the only way of making one from scratch. The rest of the bonuses here are simply mediocre. Additional unity per embassy can be nice early on in the game. Getting a 1% monthly chance to gain a favor when you're improving relations can be an okay way to build up favors with other empires, allowing you to spend them on the galactic community and leveraging votes. Reducing diplomatic influence cost of all diplomatic agreements by 50% can also be very good if you're playing a very xenophilic game and making lots and lots of pacts with lots and lots of aliens and you're running low on influence. Mercantile is entirely unavailable to Gestalt consciousness empires. You must be generating trade value in order to have mercantile. The best bonus here, if you're not focusing on trade, is the adaptive economic policies benefit that allows you to pick consumer benefits or marketplace of ideas as a trade policy, shifting some of your trade value into producing unity or consumer goods instead of energy credits. Even if you are not focusing on trade, you will be generating some trade through your basic pops. Every single pop has a living standard, and every living standard produces some amount of trade value. On top of that, you might end up having some clerks or some traders, even just a few in your empire, and this tradition will boost their output yet further. Reducing your market fee by 10% will also be very, very good in allowing you to get better deals from the galactic or local market, depending on whether or not the Galactic Council is formed and you are a member. Those two benefits, adaptive economic policies and insider trading, are really quite good, even, as I've said, without a trade focus. Unyielding is all about star bases and defense. Unyielding will allow you to get more star bases, cheaper star bases, faster star bases, and more powerful star bases. On top of that, you'll get some reductions empire-wide to war exhaustion gain, allowing you to stick out the fight a little longer in wars that you would otherwise be forced to status quo. You'll get a small amount of unity from your defense armies empire-wide, so this tradition also does give you a small unity boost. And in defensive wars, you'll get 15% extra fire rate in your borders. If you're a bulwark, there's also a nasty little bonus that you get access to. Additional hostile ship daily regen in owned systems if you're a tier 3 bulwark. That means any enemy ships in your systems will lose 0.5% of their hull and armor every single day, meaning that after 200 days in your space, they will all be dead. Static defenses are generally just not as powerful or as flexible as building actual fleets, and there are now lots and lots of ways we can stack orbital bombardment damage reduction without having to pick unyielding. For that reason, it's down here in the B tier rather than being possibly a little bit higher up in the A tier. Versatility is only available to machine intelligence empires. That is, empires that are a machine primary species and have a Gestalt consciousness authority type. The main benefits from this tradition is a 10% reduction to pop amenities usage, a 10% increase to mechanical pop assembly speed, a 10% reduction in your market fee, and a small amount of unity from all of your maintenance drones. Operational proxies does stack with the Civic that's granting us extra unity from all of our maintenance drones as well. If you're going down a virtual ascension path, I'd possibly rate this even higher, maybe up in the A tier, because we're going to get a lot of unity then from all of our maintenance drones. In terms of the downsides, increased energy pop assembly cost is very, very negligible. You're probably not going to notice this even at very large sizes of empires when you maybe spend an extra 200 or 300 energy per month having 200 or 300 pops working in pop assembly. In the B tier, we have the final two Ascension Path traditions available to regular biological empires, Psionic and Cybernetic. Psionic is very, very easy to unlock quite early on. If you're Teachers of the Shroud, you can basically complete this ascension around year 10 or 15 without having to break a sweat. For other empires, that might be closer to year 25 or 30. At a base level, you'll get 20% additional resources from psionic pops empire-wide by placing 2 telepaths on every single planet. Those telepaths will also generate a boatload of unity, so you'll be able to rush through all of the remaining traditions with relative ease. On top of that, you also will be able to enter the Shroud and get some variable RNG bonuses from that, and form a covenant with one of the 4 deities. Those covenants will give you additional benefits that can be very, very strong. You can get pop growth speed bonuses, you can get additional resource from job output bonuses, you can turn your telepaths into also being equivalent to 2 researchers per telepaths, very, very powerful in this lizard's opinion. And if you want to go all out, you might enable end of the cycle and get plus 100% resource from job output, but you then have a ticking time limit to win the game. And that is not all, ladies and gentlemen. There are also traits available to your leaders that can be placed on planets as governors, granting you up to 25% additional resource output from psionic pops. There is a special counselor job that can grant you additional resource output from psionic pops, and once you've formed a covenant, you can get 5 telepaths on one special planet, granting that planet an extra 50% resource from jobs output rather than just plus 20%. And I haven't even yet mentioned the Agenda Psionic Supremacy, which when completed is going to grant you even more resource output from your psionic pops. Psionic, even with the machine age, is still up there as possibly the best biological ascension path. Well, you might not be expecting it, but you know, we're here now for the secret call out. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still listening, if you've listened to this part, well done, you've made it to the secret call out. I know you probably haven't skipped ahead, and you have actually listened to the video. I thank you very much. Let me know down in the comments below if you've made it to the secret call out. In your comment, try to use the word psychic or telepath or something to do with psionic. Let's have a little bit of fun with this. I've recently covered all of the benefits of the cybernetic ascension path in another video. Again, I'll link that video down in the description if you'd like to find out all about the cybernetic ascension and the advanced government authorities you can grab with this one. Overall, you'll get some quite powerful pops with cybernetics. You can get the auto-modding trait on this species. You can actually double it up, I believe, getting both the biological and cybernetic auto-modding trait on the same species. You'll also get reduced cybernetic pop upkeep, a 10% boost to resources from cybernetic pops, and if you play your cyberization situation correctly, you can get 10% more specialist, ruler, or worker output empire-wide from your augmentation center buildings. You'll still get pop growth speed, and you'll also have pop assembly speed because you can still build robots, proper synthetic robots with most of the synthetic bonuses. The species traits combined with the advanced government authorities will basically mean you are at 100% happiness all of the time empire-wide, granting you at least plus 30 stability on every single planet. That is simply amazing. And that's again before we've added in all of these other bonuses that you'll get from resource from job output. We're now up to the A tier. Traditions up in this part of the tier list are basically kind of auto picks I'd recommend you grab from in most of your playthroughs, though you might not take them every time because you do obviously have a limit on how many traditions you can take, a maximum of 7 for every run. Though these are always very good contenders. First up we have Discovery here. So some of the best bonuses from Discovery are +1 research alternatives. That is very powerful early on in the game. Research has been somewhat nerfed these days, tech costs are higher, and research output is lower. So increasing the number of research alternatives we have can allow us to beeline down the tech tree and choose the more important technologies faster. Reducing your researcher upkeep also allows you to support more researchers relative to your consumer goods production. You'll also get an additional 10% research speed on completion of this tradition. The other bonuses like research subsidies, increases to survey speed, anomaly research speed, and scientist capacity are fine, but honestly after the early game most of those can pretty much be ignored. Domination for Gestalt consciousness empires is almost an auto pick just for the opener. The opener is going to grant you minus 15% pop amenities usage. That is massive if you're a Gestalt consciousness. It will reduce the number of maintenance drones you need empire-wide at the start of the game to basically 0, and it will stay at 0 for quite a long while if you stack other pop amenities usage reduction modifiers and make your amenities from other sources like evaluators. Everything else after that, in this case though, is not really amazing. The opener is great, I'd recommend you take it for that, and then probably come back and finish it much later on in the game. Minus 10% empire size from pops will be useful for reducing your tradition and technology cost when your empire gets pretty big, and a plus 5% menial drone output is good, but nobody's desperate for that. Adaptability is much better than it has ever been before. The main bonus you'll get from this, honestly, is the finisher. It will increase the effect from planetary designations on non-artificial planets. For example, research worlds will finally get an actual boost to your research output rather than just a reduction to your consumer goods upkeep. That is amazing. Other benefits are similar and will scale as you ascend your planets, which is definitely something you want to do on your largest planets in the mid to late game. +1 building slots for all planets is good to have. Extra habitability is nice, but will fall off quite quickly. A reduction to orbital bombardment damage is fine, though we can get this modifier from other sources generally, so you don't really need this desperately. A reduction in pop housing usage is trash. Don't even look at that, really. It's very rarely going to change your pop growth speed. We're talking very small point changes at very certain positions on the graph that most of the time you are not operating within. Overall, though, it is that finisher that I'm very, very excited for. We're definitely at a strange time for Stellaris. I could not have imagined a few years ago telling you that harmony was better than prosperity, but here we are, ladies and gentlemen. What is this going to be doing for you? Well, it will grant an extra 10 years of leader lifespan for regular bioempires. That can be very important for keeping your leaders alive until you complete your ascension path, or just keep them alive long enough to get more technologies and other traditions to keep them in the fight so they can get to maximum level. You'll also get a whopping minus 15% empire size from pops, +5 stability on every single planet, and reductions to planetary ascension cost and increases to planetary ascension effect. On top of that, when you complete this tradition, you get access to the Holy Covenant Federation type, which has the best trade policy in the game. That trade policy directly converts each trade value into half an energy credit and half a unity. Yes, one trade value will equal 0.5 unity. That is a lot of unity, especially on top of all of the other benefits you'll get to unity production from a Holy Covenant. The pop upkeep reduction is fine and can be multiplied with other pop upkeep reductions to get you to -30, -40%, which is nice to have. And again, that +50 edict fund is trash, and I wish it was changed to a percentage edict fund increase instead. If you're a hive mind, synchronicity is not in the C tier, it is instead up here in the A tier. The reason for that is hive minds will get +2 amenities from their synapse drones. You'll need synapse drones in order to get plenty of unity production as a hive mind to complete your traditions in a reasonable amount of time. Getting 2 amenities from every synapse drone will grant you usually enough amenities to not need maintenance drones on any planet. Instead, spin up a couple of synapse drones and generate your amenities there. This can be very good to spec into, just down into instinctive synchronization early on to get that +2 amenities from synapse drones and reduce your need for maintenance drones. Last but by absolutely no means least, we have the Statecraft Tradition. This basically is the Council Tradition. It's going to grant you, every time you complete an agenda, +150 Counselor experience per skill level of the Counselor. So a level 5 Counselor will be getting 750 extra experience. This allows you to level up your Counselors very, very quickly. By the mid-game, you can easily get to level 8 Counselors and unlock your Destiny traits. You'll also get increased councillor agenda speed and a massive bonus plus 25% extra council agenda effect duration. So those powerful agendas you've been passing will be in effect for an extra 2.5 years at a minimum. If that wasn't enough, we also get +1 effective councillor skill. So every single councillor job that our leaders is working will be worked at +1 level higher. The agenda is also pretty good, plus 20% councillor experience gain, and when complete, an additional +2 effective councillor skill. The -5% empire size is quite nice. That is an overall -5%, reducing every single category. It's also not an empire size effect, so it will also reduce your edict cost. We've now moved over to the machine side of the Ascension Traditions. Everything below this point, everything in the B tier or below, was the traditions available to regular biological empires and hive mind empires. We now have in the A tier and the S tier the ascension paths available to machine empires, because they're just so much better. Honestly, the divide here between the A tier and the B tier is shocking. Modularity, for example, is basically an extra 50% to 80% better than psionic ascension. In order to unlock modularity, you only have to complete 3 other traditions and then take the synthetic age ascension perk. Then you start your transcendence situation and can then take modularity tradition. Modularity is basically the bioascension of machine empires. You'll get access to a whole host of really good traits for your pops, and those traits are generally much better than the bio traits available. You can stack up to plus 80% resource from jobs output, yes you heard me right, 80% on all of your pops, and plus 100% metallurgist output. Holy moly. If that wasn't enough, you can get immortal leaders, you can get insane levels of pop assembly. It's just really good. You also get a straight up plus 10 stability from this tradition, plus 10% worker and menial drone output, and then all of your administrator equivalent roles, anything producing Unity as what is a complex drone, the coordinators, will grant you 2% worker output per coordinator. So with 10 coordinators on a planet, that's an extra 20% worker resource output. Amazing. It makes the synthetic ascension look like a pile of hot garbage. If you'd like to hear me go into more detail about not just modularity, but the rest of the synthetic age ascension paths, I'll place a link to that video down in the description below. Nanotechnology is early on a little bit weaker than modularity, that is definitely true. It does, however, scale massively as the game continues. This is the ultimate wide ascension path. You can stack together bonuses here to quite easily have 0 empire size from colonies, so you can have an infinite number of planets and it won't matter. You'll also be producing nanites, which allow you to get access to the nanite swarmer ship, a ship that does not cost you any upkeep whatsoever, so you can have 10 million of the things and you will not have any upkeep at all. You can go full scorched earth with this as well and convert every single world that you own into a nanite world, completely unlivable to any of the other empires in the game, thus making you an awful target for anyone's conquest, because you basically would yield pretty much nothing to them. As I mentioned at the start though, it does take a little bit of time to get this going. For the first 20, 30 or 40 years after you take this, modularity will be much better, but after a large enough period of time, this will outscale everything else in the game. You just must make sure that you don't stop expanding. The flood must grow. We're now up to the S tier. Traditions in this tier are pretty much an auto pick for any run you want to do, unless you really don't like being powerful, I suppose. If you don't like being powerful, some of the other traditions are going to be better for roleplay, but these are the very strong, powerful traditions. First up, we have expansion as a Void Dweller Empire. So if you live on habitats, getting minus 20% habitat district and alloy upkeep, along with that additional +1 maximum districts on all your habitats, is amazing. It's going to let you build more habitats faster and thus expand faster and have a larger economy than other empires that don't take expansion as a Void Dweller. On top of that, of course, the bonuses that were good for regular empires are still good for you as a Void Dweller. Extra pops and extra pop growth speed or pop assembly speed are awesome. Supremacy basically lets you field a larger military in the game. A bigger military means you've got a bigger stick to shake at everybody. Even if you don't use that military, even if you simply use the diplomacy power it gives you a massive advantage in the game. You'll get plus 20 naval capacity and plus 20% naval capacity. The graphic here has been grabbed from the wiki, which is slightly incorrect. The adoption effect is not 20% naval capacity, but a flat plus 20 naval capacity. That will put you from 20 up to 40 if you haven't got any other bonuses, and the 20% extra will be really, really good later on in the game. We can stack that with lots of other bonuses to get massive fleets later in the game. War games will give you +1 commander starting skill levels, meaning your commanders are better. You'll get plus 10% ship fire rate, meaning your ships are better. You'll also get a reduction to ship upkeep when they're docked, and you will unlock the war doctrine policies, allowing you to get more bonuses for your ships, and the Supremacist diplomatic stance. Now, Supremacist isn't as strong as it used to be, however it does grant you quite a nice bonus to naval capacity and increases your diplomatic weight from fleet power. If your fleet power is most of your diplo weight anyway, this is fine. The drawback to Supremacist is that it does reduce the diplomatic weight from all other categories though. Even if you are not a warmonger, even if you are not planning on conquering, I'd recommend you take Supremacy on every run. It will make your fleets just marginally better, but those margins are important in a game like Stellaris. Walk softly, but carry a big stick. Mercantile, if you're a trade-focused empire, that means you're planning on getting all of your energy credits from trade, is an automatic pick. You should probably take this very first, for your very first tradition, and unlock the marketplace of ideas, allowing you to rush even more traditions. If you go down the cybernetic ascension, especially an overtuned cybernetic ascension, you can stack up to a base of plus 75% trade value output from all of your jobs that will then be further modified by your planetary trade value modifiers, allowing you to get some stupidly high trade value per pop numbers when you assign those pops to be traders. Last but by no means least, up here in the S tier, we have the Enmity Tradition. This one is going to grant you as an opener additional pop growth or pop assembly speed per neighboring rival. You'll also unlock the Second Strike agenda, allowing you to cancel truces across the Empire and attack another Empire that simply is not ready for another fight. Second Strike is amazing. On top of that, when you complete this, you'll get access to the Antagonistic Diplomatic Stance. That can let you have up to 6 rivals. Every rival you have will be granting you a base unity output of plus 10 unity. That means you can get a minimum of plus 60, but generally that's closer to plus 100 to 150 with other bonuses. On top of that, we also get a host of bonuses to things like ship build cost, worker output, researcher upkeep and research build speed, damage to rivals, research and unity per rival after we win an animosity war, and a 50% bonus to diplomatic weight when opposing a resolution. That bonus to diplo weight is basically equivalent to the entirety of the politics tradition if you have all of the stars aligned with politics tradition. Usually it's actually straight up better than the politics tradition, and it's only a single pick. I find that laughably strong. Virtual is honestly, it's just straight up broken. It's the most powerful thing in the game ever. You can rush this at year 30 and end up with around 10 years later, at year 40 or so, plus 2,000 research per month, plus 500 alloys per month, a very healthy basic economy with hundreds of minerals, and 1,000 unity as well to boot. It is insane. I'm not going to cover the specifics of virtuality. Instead, if you'd like to see how that tradition works and see it in action, you probably want to find out more about my year 30 virtual rush build. If you'd like to find out more about that, click the video on screen now.